For those of you who are going to be attending late, which you're not here, we're going to record this just so you know. So if you have to skip out to go show a building or get a contract signed, just know that we've got your back over at Digsy AI. So I'm going to just start the presentation now, and we'll get started on this here. So I am Andrew Bermudez. I am the co-founder and CEO of Digsy AI. My little mugshot's on the bottom left there. I've been in sales for about, I want to say what, like probably 17 years now. I started off in commercial real estate, then I went on to start a technology startup prior to Digsy, so a lot of sales involved in that as well. Now we have Digsy AI, which is a sales platform that helps salespeople essentially automate a lot of their work, tracking their activities, and help them give insight on who their next big customer might be. So with that being said, this is going to be mainly about sales tactics. We're not going to show anything about Digsy AI or anything like that. If you are interested in that, you're welcome to email me. Most of you have my email address from the emails I've sent you from last week to today. So today we're going to be talking about how you can actually use your network to find your next big deal. And a lot of this stuff I learned throughout the years. I'm an avid listener of podcasts too, so I know that Scott Ingram is supposed to be joining us. He has a fantastic podcast called Sales Success Story. I suggest that you check him out. He interviews the top salespeople in his podcast, and a lot of things I learn every single day. So if you're online, Scott, watching this webinar, thank you for all that you do. But I highly recommend that anybody in sales, whether it's real estate, commercial real estate, B2B services, anything that attends that webinar, at least gets the podcast that he issues. With that being said, I'm going to move on to the next thing. So digging up deals through your networks is essentially what you're doing is you're mining for referrals. So we're going to be talking about why referrals are critical, tools that you can use to accelerate those referrals, and then how to actually go about getting referred to your target. So this is going to be with intent. Rather than just hanging back and waiting for somebody to refer you in the unknown, which could happen or could not happen, you can actually instigate this and bring it to life. And also show you when you have a target but you are not able to get a referral, what to do in that case. So here's an interesting statistic, and trust barometer. So that means that whatever you're selling, to a B2B, whether you're selling real estate, commercial real estate, it doesn't really matter. You want to be the first name on the lips of a referral source. So a few other things that we got to look at is another statistics, which is customers are actually 4 times more likely to buy when you're referred by somebody that they know, and that's from Nielsen. So we all know that Nielsen's a very sophisticated metrics company when it comes to this stuff. So with that being said, I mean, if we look at 84% and then 4 times more likely, I mean, we should be really spending a lot of time and energy working our network to dig up deals. So it's important in the sales, especially in advisory type industries, those require building trust in advance of a sale, and then the referral can actually just accelerate that trust, which can enhance your ability to close a deal. So what are advisory type industries? Those are real estate, services companies, financial advisors, wealth managers, legal, accounting, etc. Even if you're selling copiers or telecom, usually those also start from a referral. So tools that we can use to kind of accelerate all this thing is actually social media, and a lot of people shy away from this, and simply it's because I was one of those. I just didn't really understand it and how I could leverage it until somebody showed me, and funny enough, it was actually a technical recruiter who showed me this when I had started in commercial real estate as a sales individual. And we can use LinkedIn, we can use Twitter, we can use Facebook, and then there's tools additive to LinkedIn like Reportive, which makes this even easier. So I'm going, rather than just going over, best practices in a slide deck, what I want to do is I want to show you how we make this happen So in this exercise or example, I'm going to have a target. So there's a gentleman who many of you may know at Cushman and Wakefield named Sean Cantacovet. He's one of their top guys, runs a big team, and I want to get in touch with him. So I know that my software, I know that Digsy AI can help him and his team be more productive, and I know that his competitors are using it. So how do I get in front of them? So one thing that I will absolutely do first things first is I will actually go into LinkedIn. So I'm going to expand this a little bit so I can hide my clutter. And I'm going to go to LinkedIn, and once it loads right here, I'm going to go search for Chon. So I'm going to type in Chon. Oh, and look at that. He just popped up. So there he is. It shows that I'm a second-degree connection to Chon. And that means that, hey, Chon and I aren't first-degree connections, so we can't really connect, but somebody that I know knows Chon. So I can read more about him here. A couple of things that I might do is look at, okay, are we members of any mutual groups? It looks like we're both in the technology commercial real estate group. Well, that's great because we're a technology company. And I also see that we share 82 mutual connections. So what I will do is I will actually click on that. And I'll go through all of these individuals right here. So these are my mutual connections. And I'll just see who my strongest connection is with Chon. So I'm going to scroll here, and I'm going to look at, let me see here. So I actually just identify somebody who I know very well, right? But he works at the same company. He's not yet using the software. So I'm not going to make that introduction there. So I'm going to go and see who my strongest connection is. And I have a lot of them. Okay, great. So he knows Eric Paulson. Eric Paulson is a friend of mine who works at auction.com 10x. So now that I've got this information here, now I know how to make, how I'm connected. Now, the good thing is if for some reason Eric doesn't have a strong relationship with Chon, I've got 81 other people that can connect me to Chon. So that's fantastic. So this is where social media just like really rocks here. So when I go back to my slide deck here, I'm going to make sure, so if you saw that I've got 82 connections, this is why you want to add everybody on LinkedIn. So there used to be a tool for Outlook called a social connector. Unfortunately, they took that away. Hopefully now that Microsoft owns LinkedIn, they'll reintroduce it. But what I was able to do is I was able to see somebody who was connected or not connected to me on that had emailed me, and I would be able to press a button and just add them really quick. And there's a couple of workarounds which I'll show you and I'll share in the materials. And when we distribute this video on YouTube, I'll put in the LinkedIn notes or the YouTube notes as well. So what I can do is a couple things. So I'm going to go back to the browser, and I can see that Chon, I don't have his email, but I actually found it on his website. So I have his email address. And what I will do is, since I'm not connected to him, I need to find people, but I need to be able to grow my network. So like I mentioned, it's very important for me to grow that. So anytime that somebody emails me, right, I use a tool called Rapportive that I talked about earlier. So for example, on Rapportive, I might be able to see on the right-hand side right there that I am connected to her. But if I'm not connected to Chon, for example, Chon, I think it's there we go, Cantacovet, he'll pop up, and I can actually quickly add him or her to here. But I'm not going to connect with him because I need an introduction. So I'm going to look for Eric Paulson, and I'm going to see that I'm already connected. If I wasn't connected, I would just hit that button. Now, the other thing, too, that I would do is if you don't use Gmail, which most of us in sales don't, we're stuck with Microsoft, which is a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. I've actually added this little bookmark, which I can always just copy the email address here, and then I go to this section right here called Invite by Email. So every time somebody new emails me, I go right here, and I go ahead and add them. So I can just click there and send invitation, that's it, and then I just close the window. So I would suggest that until the LinkedIn connector is updated on Outlook, that you use that. And I'll have a link that you guys can access that page so you can bookmark it yourselves, and you can put it on your browser so that anytime you get an email, you can just copy and paste it really easy. You'd think that LinkedIn would want to make that easier, so I don't see why they wouldn't update it. So what do we do after we identify who our possible connection is who can refer us into the account. Well, there's two methods actually. So as we know, the two main communication methods are email and a phone call. So I want to really, really explain to you the context in which to use these two. So email should only be used when your connection to that sales target knows you and knows your service or your product very well, where you have to do very, very little to convince them to make an introduction. So they know you, they know what you sell, and they feel comfortable going ahead and do that. When do you use a phone call? Is you use a phone call when your connection's not that strong. You know them, but they don't know you and your current product or service very well. Maybe you guys have met a few times, so you kind of want to make that phone call to kind of reignite the relationship and be able to make that more likely for them to refer you. The one primary thing is you can't just email people saying connect me to this person. You actually have to have an angle. So the one thing is mutual contacts, and this is including myself. I get people asking me to make introductions the whole time, and I won't do it. And the reason why is because if you don't bring value and I make a referral to that person, you're going to dilute my social capital. So then going forward, anytime that I make a referral to that person, I'm losing credibility because I've made bad referrals. So if you give me something of high value that I can provide that makes me look good or that will help my client, customer, or whoever this friend is, I can actually make the connection with trust that you're going to help me, make me look good and help their business. So for example, with Chan, I want to get into that account. I'm not connected, but Eric, for example, is. So what's going to be my angle? My angle is going to be, hey, we're a proven and cost-effective solution that helps them remove data entry from their sales teams, helps them prospect more efficiently, and close more deals. Now, that's great, right? And the other thing is that their competitors are already using it. So we've got people at CBRE, Avison Young, Newmark Niagara Frank, JLL, etc. So what I can do is I can have this framework. And for all of you that are listening, I'm going to be sharing the presentation as well so that you've got it and you can refer back to it when you're trying to structure your own referral increase. So in email, the first thing is I have to reignite rapport. Even if I know them very well, if I have to talk to them in a couple of weeks, that's it. I also have to show the angle and what I'm going to say and make it super easy for them to take action right then and there. So if they don't take action right then and there, it'll slip their mind. If you add too much friction for them to make that introduction, it's hard. And I will show you how to make that very easy. So for example, I'm going to email, in this case, it's not Eric, it's Alex, but let's pretend Alex is Eric. But I've put together this email right here, and I'm going to expand this. So for example, it'll go to Alex, and it'll say subject Chan Kantakovic at Cushman & Wakefield. And I'll say, hey, Alex, I hope you're doing very well. You've seen our sales enablement product that's being used by Cushman & Wakefield's competitors before, so I'm reaching out with a small ask. And here's my angle. I noticed that you know Chan at Cushman. He has a large sales team under him, and I would love to get in front of him and show him how our software tool can help his team remove sales data entry for his team, prospect more in less time, generate and close more deals with a proven and cost-effective solution. And then at the end, I make it really easy for them to make that connection. And it's, do you think you could forward this email? And I've bolded that so it's a call to action. Forward this email to him and see if he would take a short phone call or meeting. Thanks in advance, and let me know how I can return the favor. Now, here's a quick tip. There's been a lot of analysis through thousands and thousands of sales emails, and when you thank people in advance, it has a higher likelihood that people will take action. So you can read up on that just by doing a quick Google search. Now, that's if I'm connected with a mutual connection that knows and trusts me, and they already know what I'm doing. So when I'm doing a call, so somebody that is not so caught up into what I'm doing, what I want to do is I want to reignite rapport. And the way that I'm going to reignite rapport is by catching up in their life and their business. Then I'm going to explain why I'm calling them, and then I'm going to make it easy for them to be able to make that introduction. So what that looks like is like this, and I'm going to have this call script as well, so you guys can email me, but it's going to be in the recording that we send out with the landing page. But for example here, if I'm calling, let's say Bob, who's my connection, in this case it would be Eric, who knows Chan, it'd be like, hey, I just call him up and I say, hey, Eric, long time, man. What are you up to these days? How's work? How's life? Let them talk. And then when they go, hey, I'm doing pretty well. Hey, I've got something that I'm working on that I'd love to show you over the web for 5 minutes, and it's going to be our software. And I said, hey, would love to get your thoughts. When is a good time to do this? Because they're most likely not ready to, sit in front of their computer through a small demo right then and there. But then we schedule a time, and then after I show them, then on the in that same event, what I can do is end the interaction with like, hey, I noticed that you know Chan over at Cushman, and as you already know, his competitors are using our tool. So, and they're using it to minimize data entry, double their prospecting, close more deals, and it's cost effective. And then I ask, hey, if I send you an email that you can forward to Chan, would you feel comfortable forwarding the email to him to make an introduction? And then depending on what they say, if they go, yeah, no problem, then what I do is I just copy and paste the email that we'll be providing you in there, or you got to tweak your angle, of course. But that just makes it really, really easy to do that. So I'm going to be taking questions shortly, but I want to show you one more thing. And these things are very, very powerful. And it's so funny because this is probably going to be the shortest webinar we've ever had. We started at 12:05. It's already 12:20. But this is very powerful stuff. This is a lot of the stuff that we use at Digsy AI to get big accounts. But here's the thing. So what if you don't have a mutual connection and you really want to do business with a certain company? Maybe you read about them on a blog, or maybe you read about them on the business journal, but you've looked on LinkedIn, you're in the process of growing your network, and you don't have anybody who can connect you to the inside. Well, there's actually a way that you can actually forge those relationships, and it's called social selling. And it's a big, big initiative that you see. And what it is basically using LinkedIn, Twitter, different environments in which your prospect lives to forge a relationship with them so that they're more likely to take your call. One of those would be LinkedIn groups. Like earlier, I saw that Chan is part of the technology group for commercial real estate. What a great angle, right? I can interact with him in the group. I'm not a great connection with him, but I can actually go in and interact. And I can also post content in there and like his content if he's published anything. So I can also do it on Twitter. Some people are not active in LinkedIn groups, so I can go on Twitter and see if they have any activity. So I'm going to give you an example of this here. So I'm going to go back to Chan's profile, and I see that we're both in one group, right? So I'm going to figure out how I'm going to get into this group, and I'm going to go to my groups here. Let me see here. And I'm going to go to my groups. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to filter, and there it is. So technology for commercial real estate professionals. And I see that there's 11,000 members, which is fantastic. Let me see who's in here. And I'm going to find Chan. And there he is. And what it's doing is actually just sending me here. So that's not that useful. So let me just backspace here. Let me see if there's a way for me to do other things. But if there isn't, if for some reason everything else fails, here's the cool thing. When you're connected with them, you can actually send them a message directly because we're both part of the same group. And I can actually message him directly. How cool is that? So I won't go into that. That's last resort. You always want to work with somebody through a referral first, because that way you can earn and accelerate that trust. As we mentioned earlier, 80 to 84% of people, ask for a referral first, which is fantastic. So let's say, for example, Chan. I'm going to ditch Chan as an example here. I'm going to go and try to find, let's say, Mark Benioff, who is the CEO of Salesforce. So there's Mark, right? And I can see that he doesn't have any groups that he's a member of, but maybe he is on Twitter, right? So this is a huge publicly traded company. I really, really want to find that. I do have 20 connections, but let's say that I didn't have any connections with him. How would I forge that relationship? So what I can do is I can look on his LinkedIn profile if there is if he has his Twitter information, and he does. If I didn't have his Twitter information, all I would do is I would do Mark Benioff, Salesforce, Twitter, and there he is. So I would just go in here, And the first thing that I would do is I would start following him. So let me log into my account. So first thing, I'm going to follow him. That's one thing. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to, all right, so he's got a little post of best performing CEOs. I'll read this, and then what I'll do is I'll like the information and I'll retweet it. So this is great. Good job at Benioff, right? So now he's going to see my tweet, and then this is not all we can do. Now, these relationships that you're forging will take time. But what will happen is, as you go in every day, you look at what he's posting on either LinkedIn groups or here, I can like more and more stuff. I can also respond to him and things like that and say, hey, this was great, etc. And when I start seeing him engage with me, then I can go out and either send, a personal direct message or things like that. I can do that. So let me show you how to do it looks like the interface was kind of changed here. But I can do, I can't, unless he messages me, I can't do a direct message. But when he starts following me, then I'll be able to do that. But what I'll be able to do is, let's say we've been chatting back and forth. He's responded to me over a period of, like, let's say 2 weeks or 3 months or whatever, and I have a sense personally that there's some rapport there. Then what I'll do is I'll find his email address, like for example here, and I'll send something like, Twitter, great interacting with you on Twitter. I would love to show you our AI sales product and see how we can partner up. When is a good time to chat? And then here's my availability. And over at Digsy, we use a lot of little tools. So this one right here is a really cool calendar tool that I'm able to basically pick sometimes here. We're also building things like this into Digsy AI, by the way. So you'll have this sometime in the near future. And then I'm able to just say there and then just send them an email. Ideally, I don't want to do that. Ideally, what I want to do is, as I interact with them, try to keep on building my network and get referred in, because referrals are powerful. So that just gives you an example of how you can use LinkedIn networks, and you can use, or groups, and you can use different things to kind of break into these accounts if you don't have a personal connection. So I'm going to be opening it up to the forum for questions here. And let me see if I can unmute you guys or not. It looks like I can't, but I'm going to go to questions and see who has questions. All right, so does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask via the chat here? All right, guys, if nobody has questions, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll go post this on our website as a recording, and I'll go ahead and distribute it to all of you. So unless anybody else has anything else, I'll let you guys get out of here, and have a great afternoon.